Okay, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started. Folks, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to ask Chairman Green to go ahead and give us an invocation to start us.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, as we come together today, let us be mindful that we are servants of the people. Let us be diligent in our work. And Father, let us carry forth what you would have us to do. And Father, we ask you now to be with us in the coming days as we close out this legislative session. Bless us, O Father, guide us and direct us in all things. And we ask this in the Holy Son's name. Amen.
Thank you, Gerald. Okay, we've got a brief, but I would still say pretty meaty agenda for today. I understand the senator has something else. If I could have Senator Hickman come on up with Senate Bill 150. Bethany, you're welcome to join him. And I just want to say on behalf of House and Senate, I just want to appreciate both of you working together on this. Senate Bill 150, I think. Go ahead, Mr. Senator.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I totally agree. She and I have been a team since day one, and we've sometimes we don't always agree, but we always seem to come together at the right time. So
you don't want to get on her bad side, I know that.
Well, I haven't seen that about her.
I haven't either. I just know not to get on it.
Everything I've seen about it has been very, very pleasant. But thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank y'all committee members. We won't go through the whole bill like we did last time in the background, but we are working off a committee substitute, House substitute LC 5606. 84 S as in Sam.
Correct, yes.
Okay, very good. So we went through the history of the bill last time and why we need it and what the purpose of it is and that type of things. But I just mainly want to hit on the highlights, Mr. Chairman, of this substitute, and Representative Ballard can join in any time because she really helped us craft this substitute. That actually came out of the House. We did some of the changes that we made in the substitute was originally we had a I think it was an 8-year sunset. We have now, y'all's leadership have dropped that sunset back to June 30th, 2030. I think that's a four-year sunset. Very happy with that. These changes I'm very satisfied with. I'm just glad that we're getting this bill moved forward. We still down on line 27 of the substitute, a beneficiary who has attained 30 years. Remember, initially it was 25. We increased it to 30 years. As we said before, there was no fiscal note, no dollar amount on the 30 years or the 25, but we agree with the 30 years. A credible service in this retirement system in a full-time capacity as certified teacher of pre-kindergarten through grade 12, highly, highly important, who has his or her primary responsibility is the academic instruction and support of students in the area of mathematics, special education, science, CTAE, reading, writing, or English language arts, provided that such beneficiary in the area of reading, writing, and or English language arts holds a current dyslexia or reading endorsement approved by the Professional Standards Commission, provided that at least 1 year has expired from the effective date of such beneficiary retirement. So we know that they've got to be out of the system a year before they can come back. They can come back for the 49% during that period of time, but in order to come back full-time, it's a solid year. We added some wordings on the advice y'all as used in code section. Area of highest need means one of 3 content areas for which there are the greatest percentage of unfilled positions for classroom teachers, and that's going to be determined by the public school system.
And just to be clear, this is it's rated as no cost on the actuarial investigation. That's the proper terminology that we keep. Go ahead, sir.
That's right. It was that type of fiscal note. And then the very last thing I will say, there was to be no change in public school system. The area of highest need shall require the termination or resignation or non-renewal of any beneficiary previously hired under a previous subsection. So I would defer to Representative Ballard to address that, if you mind.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
So what that means, that protects some of our teachers who have returned to the classroom. For example, if math was a high needs area and you returned, as a math teacher, but math rolled off your area of high needs list, but you're a really great math teacher and they want to keep you, they don't have to fire you. They don't have to terminate your contract. You can stay on even though math is no longer high needs.
Great, very satisfied with that.
More than anything, it slightly expands, but it also keeps the program going for 4 more years.
Yes, sir.
Representative Ballard, about how many teachers statewide are coming back to return to work through this? I thought it was in the neighborhood to 300 to 500 teachers statewide. Is that correct?
I think the last year was like 452.
That sounds
like
right. That sounds right.
And Mr. Chairman, I think by expanding these areas that we'll have, the idea, as y'all remember, we need to get qualified teachers in the classroom. We can't go any longer with a person in the classroom not being a degree teacher. And I think by opening this up and adding CTAE and some other subjects to it, really does expand. And hopefully that number will increase.
We have a question, number 24.
Yes.
Chairman Green.
Senator, this is a godsend for the rural areas. We cannot get enough teachers.
Thank you.
And especially in the area of math and science, and to extend this is just what our superintendents, and I have 9 of them, school superintendents down there, and they are all in favor of this. And this is absolutely what we need.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming.
The next one I saw was number 16. I think that's Representative Buckner. Is that right?
It is.
Go ahead.
This is just my curiosity. I noticed that you struck Reese's making the decisions. So is that just so that the public schools that are closest to the need have the best information and can make that decision, or is there another reason?
No, it's just to provide that measure of local control and local responsiveness. Our REISs are very often so diverse, and there's very often like one, kind of suburban county and a whole bunch of rural counties. Well, those needs are very, very different. And so this I felt was more responsive, especially to our rural counties.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Agree with that.
Okay. Thank you. Number 2, I think that's Chairman Wilkerson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With this being extended to 2029, and I know we just did an audit report that kind of talked about the benefits and the challenges that it's facing, is it possible to do another audit at the end so that when we're reevaluating this, or whoever's reevaluating this in 29 has an opportunity to see the latest data? Because the hope is that we would have more than 400 teachers taking advantage of it. Is it possible, would you consider adding another audit requirement in there in 28 or something like that?
I think that's an automatic situation every year. I think we'll know every year based upon the classes or the courses that's taught, and also the teachers, the number of teachers, and also the area and the school districts they're in.
Correct, but I guess when the plan was originally expiring in July 1st, 2025, we put in there that you would have to have an audit prior to that date to basically talk about the value and the necessity of full-time employment of beneficiaries. I'm looking at lines 74 through 78. With it being extended to 29, should we update that language to say July 1st to 29 so we can have another audit done to
change that to
know if this is working as intended?
You okay? Yes, sir, both of us would be happy
All right,
with that.
thank you.
If you would offer that as an amendment, we'd be happy with
Okay.
it.
At the appropriate time,
Well noted and good catch. And I think that would be, I imagine that would be a non-fiscal
Yes, sir.
change to the substitute bill. Any other questions from the committee? Well, I know one constituent that wants to speak to this. Mr. Aycock, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to be exceedingly brief, but on behalf of educators across the state, I just want to thank Chairman Hickman, Representative Ballard, and all the committee for their continued work on this. And if there are no questions, I just simply urge your favorable consideration to continue this important program. Thank you.
And you're speaking on behalf of Professional?
Yes, Professional Association of Georgia.
That's the
very
one.
sorry.
Yeah, got
Yep.
it.
There we go.
Very good. Any questions? Number 17.
Mr. Chairman, on the gentleman's request for an amendment, I just consulted with the attorney. if we amend, we do have to get another cert, even if it's non-physical. We could vote it out of committee and get that cert before it goes to the floor, I believe, though. So I don't believe that would slow the gentleman's, I'd leave that to the chair in terms of the amendment.
I think it will be, I think it's, I think it would be, yes, it would require a new cert, but I think it could happen quickly.
Yes, sir.
And I'd like to have that in.
Thank you.
To address Chairman Wilkerson's point. I hear what you're saying, and I think we could achieve that quickly. We still have 4 legislative days. I don't see this coming out on the floor Wednesday, but I would particularly to Chairman Green's point, I think this needs to come out for a vote sooner rather than later.
Yes, sir.
So, okay. Any other discussion on the bill? No more speakers. Any questions from the committee? I'll entertain a motion. We have a motion to pass from Vice Chairman Franklin. I have a second.
Change it to 29.
A second from Chairman Green. Discussion next. Okay, I think I'm going to recognize Chairman Wilkerson. I'm sorry, hold on. There you go.
I would like to
Go ahead.
make an amendment.
Okay.
Ooh,
That's
man.
okay.
Take me out of a suit and I forget what I'm talking
We're very
about. Prior, on line 74, I would like to change the date prior to July 1st, 2025 to say July 1st, change the 2025 to 2029
As an amendment.
as amendment, yes.
Is there a second for the amendment? Second from Chairman Deloach. All in favor of the Chairman Wilkerson's amendment to change 2025 on line 74 to 2029? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, amendment passes. Now, for the substitute as amended, and again, thank you, Senator, for reading that off, LC 560684S as amended. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Bethany, don't forget the rules form, and let me talk to, let me help you in rules if at all,
Thank
if all
you.
I can.
Okay. I'll run back and get my form. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Legislative Council,
you,
can you
Committee
go
members.
ahead and make department audits and accounts aware? Thank you so much. Okay. Senate Bill 143. Chairman Albers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you mind if I brought Mr. Morgan Wurst up here with the firefighter
Please do.
pension fund to join me? All right, I'm going to phone a friend. All right. I believe you have in front of you, if that's okay, LC 560555S.
Yes.
All right, great. Mr. Chairman, members of your distinguished committee, I come before you again for something that's very personal to me. I'm not a member of the Firefighter Pension Fund, but I am 4 of 5 generations in my family. When my great-grandfather started, he was on a hook and ladder truck that was drawn by horses. That's how deep this is in my family. And over my 53 years on this earth, I have buried way too many of my brothers and sisters. More than I can count and more than I care to remember sometimes. You have a handout in front of you that says sacrifice for service. And I just want to go over what it means to be a firefighter and the toll it takes on us before we talk about why this is such an important change. First are the mental health struggles, which we've talked a lot about in this General Assembly for the last many years. But firefighters very frequently experience burnout, anxiety, and depression. About 20% of firefighters meet the criteria for PTSD, which is similar to veterans who just returned from active combat. I want to share something that's really important. We all think of PTSD as our veterans typically. And if a veteran has served for 2 years of combat, which in today's day and age, thank God, is not anything normal, they could come back with 100 to 125 PTS moments. Moments that could lead to that disorder and that stress. Now, what does that mean to the average human being, to all of us? Well, the average person has 4 in your life. Think about it. Tragic car accident, death in the family, something happened that just really impacted you. Average firefighter has 700. I want you to think about that for a second. 700. What does that mean? Physical hazards. What are we exposed to? Carcinogens, toxic materials. Our rate of getting cancer is exceedingly higher than everyone else's in any business. In fact, so much of the fact that Micah Gravely and I, years ago, passed the Firefighter Cancer Act here in Georgia, and it's become very commonplace in other states now. Very proud of that. Chronic sleep disorders, cardiovascular disease, and orthopedic issues, just to name a few, for the intense amount of strain on our physical bodies as well. Family stress. Firefighter families deal with this very long-term effects of this trauma. First responders and their partners typically have problems not just with PSD, but substance disorder abuse and their own anxiety. Why is that? Well, first off, it's shift work. 24 or 48 hours on straight to come home for 48 to 92 or 96 hours. And most jobs, you don't miss Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, Hanukkah, Passover. You don't have to leave in the middle of the night. You don't get woken up 3 or 4 times in the middle of the night. Communication gaps, missing kids' dance recitals, soccer team and baseball practices. We live, depending on the study, 2 to 18 years less than everybody else does. And we do it with a smile, and we're proud of it, and when you dial 911, we're the first people to get there almost every single time. And that's why I'm here today. You heard a great bill earlier about teachers. Teachers are very important, critically important, and we all love our teachers. We give teachers the opportunity a long time ago, and now to re-up again, to be able to retire and then come back and do the job that they love and a critical need. We give that opportunity to our law enforcement officers, your local police department, your sheriff's department, your jailers in the jail, and your 911 operators. We do not give this opportunity to firefighters. There's a lack of parity that exists today. If you flip over the back of this, you see a couple pictures. One talks about some of the main points. When we have folks leaving this business, whether they leave at 10 years, 20 years, 25 years, we leave at the peak of experience, when we need them the most. We talked earlier about our rural areas. In fact, Dean of the House mentioned how important it was for teachers in rural areas. It's as important, if not more, for our firefighters in our rural areas. This is also a recruitment tool. People have a lot of options these days to do a lot of different jobs, and we really need them in this one. But if you see the 2 pictures on the bottom, we have a term for that. It's called Tuesday. It could happen any day of the week. And what you see is people walking through what is up to 1,000 degrees, carrying hose, carrying ladders, carrying people in and out at great strain to them physically and mentally. And that's why many years ago, through the wisdom of this General Assembly, you created the Firefighter Pension Fund. And it has been very successful, managed by a great board and Mr. Morgan Wurst to my side. They have managed it extraordinarily well. In fact, I got to share some numbers with you, Mr. Chairman, of what their percentage is, even better than the TRS system, which we're doing this for, and even my friends with the ER system, both great systems. And I think we all know that Georgia has done a great job on keeping our systems funded when we look like other states like Illinois, who are in the single digits, and we are close to the top. This is a really simple bill. It says when you meet the magic number of 80, years of alive, up to 50 plus, and 30 years of service, you're going to be able to retire and then come back and work in the fire service. You're not going to continue to draw and add at the same time. You're going to actually be out, you'll get your retirement, and you'll be out of the system then as an active person, you'll just be able to work. But today we tell you, you can't be a fireman anymore. It's the craziest thing in the world. People have asked, well, why is this different from somebody else? And I will tell you, when I look at first responders and veterans, for everybody else, they deserve special treatment. 100% they do. Because nobody else has to do what we do. Nobody else sees what we see, and candidly, nobody else can unsee what we saw. This is going to keep your community safer. It's going to keep the most experienced people there from our most rural areas that sometimes are literally dying for people to show up. to the folks here in our most metro area that have the biggest potential need for people to respond. Most of our firefighters are also your EMTs and paramedics now who are responding to medical calls, more so than even fire calls sometimes. This is important. We've done the actuary study. The system can absorb this without any issue. This is really important. And while there are several members of the fire service behind me, only because we didn't have more time, I could have had 2,000 people here. And if you were here on Firefighter Day that we had in February, when you saw all those people surrounding the south steps on the second floor, the third floor, and the fourth floor, the governor talked, the insurance commissioner talked, the lieutenant governor talked, the speaker talked. They all got nice applause. An hour before that, I passed Senate Bill 143 through the Senate Retirement Committee, and that got a standing ovation. This is important. They're in every corner of your district. They are hopefully the most respected people that are doing good, not just for the fire service, but they're involved in every charity, every school tournament, every sports organization. They're part of your Rotary clubs, your Kiwanis clubs. These are the people we count on, and this is a chance to give back to them. So I would ask your favorable consideration to move this forward for my brothers and sisters in the fire service.
Thank you. I know that was heartfelt, and I didn't see any notes, and that's how I know. Not just without notes, but you were speaking from the heart. Mr. Worth, did you have anything more to say before we go to committee questions and so forth?
Yeah, you know, a little bit about our pension fund. It is a supplemental fund, so this is, you know, for our volunteers, it's their only, assuming, you know, if they're a farmer, they probably don't have a, you know, a company-sponsored 401k, but for a lot of our volunteers, this is their retirement outside of, say, Social Security. But it is a distinction. It's a separate fund. So some of these folks will be able, the paid ones will, you know, this will be an extra source of income for them later in life. Yeah, and we have 14,500 members, roughly, about 7,500 retirees, another 3,600 folks who are either suspended, vested, and waiting legal age. So a total of about 25,500 members throughout the state. And, you know, I don't know what the total number of firefighters is out there. You know, I'm not really aware how many volunteers there are, but it is, it's at least half of the state firefighters are in this fund.
Morgan, could you go over that 14,500 beneficiaries?
No, 7,500. Oh, active members. So these are the firefighters themselves, the retirees / beneficiaries. So that's 7,500.
14,500 is what? Is that contributing members?
Yes.
And then a number of inactive totaling?
Yeah, we call it suspended / vested / waiting legal age. So they're just they're either, you know, the fire service is often very transitory. Certainly, you know, members hop around, and sometimes there's a break in service, and they don't get kicked out of the fund, but they're technically, you know, not active members. So we just classify them as that.
And it'd be important to note, Mr. Chairman, those non-active members sometimes are not active because they can't even work in the fire service anymore. They might be building houses or work for a landscaping company or change careers because they can't then, once they're vested, come back and work in the fire service. So we're losing that great experience.
I understand. I think I had your light up first. Vice Chairman Franklin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, and thank you for bringing this bill. I really appreciate it, especially hearing your opening remarks. That was really good. A lot of what you said I didn't know, to be honest with you. So, and it makes me intrigued to learn a little bit more. But, you know, just to give you a little bit of background on me, I used to be a ship's captain in my previous life, and we had to take a class called the SCCW to serve on the ship, and we had to learn how to put out a fire. And I went through a brief training. I would not say I'm anywhere near had the training a regular firefighter does, but it gave me such a deep respect for it because they put us in a box and lit us on fire, basically, and it was unbelievable. I couldn't imagine going through the training, much less doing what you do every day. The question I have, though, is not really with the first section of the bill, but just on section 3. I'm just curious, lines 187 through, I guess, 190. If you could just explain to me a little bit about go into detail about what that is with the 10% of total assets in this fund and investments form of assets rated below investment grade. Can you explain a little bit about what that means and what that?
I think that's prior.
I'm going to go ahead and give it to Morgan, even though I know the answer.
Okay.
Yeah, so here in Georgia, as far as I know, we're the only state that doesn't allow pension funds to invest in high-yield debt. It's called junk bonds, high-yield debt, below investment grade. And it's a fixed income product out there that we do not have access to. Over the long haul, it generates a higher rate of return. And, currently we can, outside of depending on what your alternatives allotment is, outside of that, you pretty much have to go into public equities or investment grade bonds or investment grade bonds. And so I think if you look at the funds in the state, they're going to have a lot higher exposure to public equities to try to make up for the shortfall that the investment grade debt generates. It just doesn't generate enough to meet the required rate of return, so you use some mix in there. And frankly, public equity is a pretty risky. It's a pretty risky investment. It fluctuates daily. I mean, we saw just over the last month how much it can sway one way or the other. And I think historically we probably have a little bit more exposure to fixed income, investment grade fixed income, than a lot of the funds. I think a lot of the funds here are going to be close to 75-80% in public equities and 20 to 25% in investment grade bonds. We're currently probably about 55% in public equities, about 10% in a little less, probably 8% in alternatives, and then the rest of that, so I think that's about 37% is in fixed income. And so what we would like to do is take a portion of that fixed income and put it into, it is a riskier form of fixed income, but it's not as risky as the public equity. And that's one reason for it. Another reason we've struggled to in international fixed income, struggling sometimes to find products that are truly investment grade. You can look at the product and they say investment grade, and that's the average of everything. But if you look in what's in it underlying, it's a hodgepodge. It's a bunch of AAA, investment grade is considered BBB and above. So it's got mostly that, but some of the other. And we're not comfortable going into a product that says average if we look into it, and it's got a list of investments that we wouldn't be able to do currently if we had a sort of a separately managed account for us. So I look at it sort of like real estate. We got the ability to do real estate 7 or 8 years ago. We still haven't done anything. If we did it, we would not do it right now. There's certain times when fixed income makes more sense, and that's when the spreads, the rates that it generates versus investment grade. When those spreads widen, that's when you want to be there. And currently they're pretty tight. So we don't have any immediate plans to go into it, but it's another arrow in the quiver, I guess you would say. But that's really why we're asking for it.
I appreciate it. And do you have the ability to do any of it now, or any percentage now, or is it?
No one does.
Okay. So it'd be just 10% now. You don't have 5 or any percentage at this point.
No, we technically do because, we do have some bonds that were purchased, when they were purchased, were investment grade, but may have been downgraded. So you don't have to get rid of them and sell it, take that, you can hold it till, but you cannot purchase anything that's non-investment grade.
Thank you.
Okay, number 17, Chairman Martin.
Thanks, Chairman. Thank you, Senator. I mean, let me preface this by saying I absolutely appreciate the firefighters. My days going back to local government, the firefighters and police officers in Alpharetta were near and dear to me. They still are. That said, I'm going to ask some questions. It is, but based on my information, the fact that there's not a break in service here will kill the qualification of the plan, according to an IRS, and I can give you the document for that. We can get around that. I mean, that's a small hurdle. But what I wanted to preface that to ask you this question, is the issue of the no break in service, because some of these folks are working full-time at a city and they'd like to retire from this plan and start getting this plan, but if they break in service, if they retire from the city of Alpharetta or the city of Rawlsville or Sandy Springs, that would adversely impact them on their full-time job. Is that an issue with the break in service?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't want the break in service for that exact purpose, because if they leave for a year, you have to keep up what's called continuing education credit hours and other things. So if they lost that whole year, they wouldn't have the ability to go access that without paying out of pocket and doing other things.
I understand. I mean, we could do the continuing education. My worry was, like, if you lost your spot on the truck at Alpharetta, is that some of what we're dealing with? And the answer, it sounds like yes.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. That's just one of the questions. Okay, getting back, and this was, I mean, respectfully, the vice chairman brought up this thing. This complicates this, and I think you might have been there when the firefighters, I believe, were the group that took on when I had alternative investments a few years ago for another retirement system. They didn't want it, and you guys came forward, I believe, and wanted that for the bill, and have done well with it. Mm-hmm. So I like that. It gives me pause with the delve into the credit market, what you referred to, your words, not mine, junk bond market. Just this morning, a large private equity firm in the debt area did a mark-to-market and marked down billions in their portfolio 19%. They didn't tell anybody for years going by, and then they marked their portfolio down 19%. Now, I don't know if that meant half of it was okay and the other half went down 38%, but I would just say we're looking at two things here. You're increasing the liability on the fund at $61 million, and at the same time you're looking for a more, I get it, you're trying to get some more return, and I'm getting around to my question is, which is most important to us here is to move these things or to take this, all at once. I would just caution you to be careful of that. And then the next question, and the last one, is with the break in service and the cost of the plan, are we trying to get people back to work? Because this does two things. It changes the retirement age, and it gets rid of the break in service. That's a big bite at the apple.
Well, there was never a break in service before. When you're out, you're gone.
I understand that, but I mean, and we're trying to get away from that to get more people back. So which of those, I mean, I don't think we can get past with the federal law on the break in service. Again, we can talk about what the length of that is, but there has to be a bona fide break in service. But the going back down to the year, taking the retirement age down to, I'm trying to, was that?
Well, it's the math of when you get the magic number of 80, because 30 years of service on somebody's body really doesn't matter whether they started at 20 or 30. 30 years of what we go through in those pictures and what we're exposed to is still 30 years. So the goal is to give them a chance to see an end of retirement, to see that they'll be able to capture that and to either stay in the business, or if they're going to retire, then to come back and give more years of service if they physically can still do that, which is what we're trying to do. You brought up a great point about alternative investments, because I remember that I actually helped pass it the first time, and nobody else wanted it. In fact, I remember the people that fought us actually was the TRS, if you remember. And even though it had nothing to do with the TRS, they were afraid if we did it in the firefighter pension fund, it would come to them. And they fought us for years until we finally passed it. It was so successful, they said, well, can we do it too? So I think what I'm trying to say is in deference to Morgan and his board, I think that they have been constantly looking at ways to diversify the portfolio of the pension fund, just like all of us do. Right? I don't have everything in the stock market. I don't have everything in mutual funds. I got property. I've got businesses. I've got this. I've got that. We're trying to broaden that base so at any given time, if the stock market goes and does a 10% correction, or if part of the bond market does better or worse, that we've got a balanced portfolio. And what they've done is they've looked out over the last 10, 20, 30 years and said that the total sum of this shows that history before us and ahead of us will bode well for the fund. And I really trust them as being experts to do that.
May I answer one part of your question? You had mentioned the private equity firm that had to write down a bunch of the debt that it held. I want to just make a little distinction there. That would be considered private credit. That would not be investment grade. Investment grade is marked, priced throughout the day, and you can go
Duly noted.
Yeah.
I just meant that
Yeah.
to the point. The credit markets are not. You mentioned in your statement, isn't it true that you'd rather be in these bonds because the stock market, the equities market was dangerous? I would just making the point that the credit market is also at risk.
100%. Historically less dangerous, but both can be dangerous. Yes. I will say one thing also. Until July, I think it was July 2024. Delta Airlines was considered junk bonds. So there's good companies out there. So this is an ask from our board on this bill. This and the special needs trust language in there were two asks. So we don't want that. If that's a holdup, we're happy.
It was
to
a
let
caution,
that
and
go.
again, I compliment you on taking the alternative investment thing a few years ago. It was just you're bringing that all to bear. I just wanted to take everything in.
You're not wrong.
There's not magic out there. The other thing I will just ask here, because we just had it over on the other side with the POAB, and we're working with those guys. Is, I believe you're funded with a portion of the insurance premium tax. Is that correct?
That is.
Correct.
And with that, this bill doesn't contemplate, well, let me just ask, do your members pay their $25? Because I'm told over on the local side, a lot of times that's a bonus that gets paid for by your local governments.
It's just different. There's 400 400
different
departments.
places and different.
Yeah,
Okay.
probably 75 different ways of doing it.
Fair enough, because we have been approached with, hey, on the POAB, hey, we'd be interested in, doing this with going from their thing up by a few dollars a month, to help with doing it too. So that was just a question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And that's a great question, Chairman Martin, and I have encouraged all the fire departments, local governments, because it is a very small amount of money to pay for that in order to make sure that everyone is a part of the fund, and it's a very small investment for them. Absolutely. Thank you. And Alpharetta does that.
Any other questions from the committee? I wanted to go ahead, Mr. Worst.
I just want to say, you brought up the potential tax implications, and those obviously have to be looked at. I think, though, that this is as a supplementary plan. I think it would be considered non-qualified.
So in our conversation earlier, this is not a qualified plan.
Not a qualified.
My concern, and I've raised that with legislative counsel, is does a no break in service, does that trigger anything from a negative standpoint to either the plan or the participants? And that's what we're looking into.
Yeah.
Does your board have a position on this?
They are neutral. So this is basically, as you all know, it's a benefit enhancement without any offsetting corresponding revenue. So, this is a little beyond their purview. They get to make a benefit enhancement decision twice a year when it comes to issuing granting a COLA or not granting a COLA. So, we are, in our funding policy, they will not grant a COLA if it puts the fund under 80% funded on both a fair market and actuarial basis. As well, we have to be meeting our annualized actuarially determined contribution, our ADAC, and the employer contribution, which is the tax money. And yes, we're not 100% funded, but that tax money is much higher than our ADAC. So what's been happening over the past few years, we have been granting COLAs, and anything over goes down to pay the liabilities, pay the members, or give a COLA. So we've paid this down to where we're at whatever, about 91% funded, and we only required a little over $40 million for the ADAC, and we got in last year $63.9 million. This thing ups the ADAC from, I think, from 40 to 46 or 48. We're anticipating $67 million in insurance revenue. So if that happens, there will still be more left over to pay down that extra liability. I look at it this way. It's like we have a mortgage, right? And we're getting real close to paying it off. Mm-hmm. And now we're kind of taking a little second mortgage, knowing that both myself and my spouse are working and feel good about our jobs, and we think we can pay it off. But nothing is certain. Nothing is certain. But that this would qualify. It doesn't put us below 80% and still meeting our ADAC. So, but this is not something the board would think of without being 100% funded, as acting as fiduciaries to the fund.
So
and still being more than TRS.
if the fund
Yeah.
if the fund was 100% funded, your board would have a different position on this?
If it was 101% or anything over 100, they would, probably we would just have to look at the cost and stuff like that.
Okay.
But if it's something that doesn't put you below 100%, and therefore, like it's real world, it's affecting a couple of our board members who are active firefighters, one of whom's a chief, and the retention of firefighters and the lack thereof it's a real thing. It's out there.
I keep hearing that very much. Yes.
Yeah. So
including in Cherokee County as well.
Yeah. So
and Cobb.
And this would it's another carrot to dangle.
Sure.
Not all these folks want to leave, but this may be the difference between staying 6 more months, a year later, longer, or not. But as it stands currently, with the current, I'll let you know right now. You're looking whatever the study was based off of 2024 stuff, which I think we were around 1.25 or something billion. 25 were 1.392, and currently we're around.
They probably don't need this one.
Okay, 1.5. We have higher numbers, so we're actually a little better off than maybe the study says, but not 100%.
I understand.
Sorry for the long-winded answer.
That's okay. I don't see any other questions from the committee. What I just wanted to mention is I want to do something here. I really do. What gives me pause is I appreciate the Chairman Albers saying we want to provide parity with, for example, the teachers. The no break in service is of concern to me. It's not because I don't want to do this. What I don't want to do is something systemic and technical that causes compliance and tax regulations on the pension fund that you don't want to have those kind of problems. That's what I'm most concerned about. The funding percentage going down from 81 to 78 roughly, not great, but Mr. Worst, you and I have talked about how the assumed rate of return is about 5 3/4 versus you're achieving what, 7.5 right now?
Well, it just depends what time period, but certainly well over what our assumed rate of return is. Yeah.
Right, and that as well as the board your board is neutral out on this, as I understand it, as of right now. Correct?
They are neutral, so with the understanding, that as fiduciaries, they're gonna, they're not gonna actively pursue this because, it's, as I said, it's outside their purview. They're here for benefits.
We have one more question, maybe more of a continuation of a question. What we absolutely want to help, particularly in areas where it's hard to recruit and retain. What I see happening if we can let the status quo continue, I look at these fine gentlemen right here. What I see is a lot of institutional knowledge leaving.
Yeah.
That's what I see. And nobody wants that to happen. What I really don't want to happen is to do something to the plan where there's no break in service for a retirement plan. If it's a supplemental income plan, then let's have that conversation. That's what I don't want to do, is do something systemic from a legal and financial standpoint that is very, very costly.
And Mr. Chairman, I believe we have dotted that I and crossed that T. This is a supplemental retirement plan. We're pretty darn sure that there's no issue here with that.
Okay. Chairman Martin.
IRS 401A and 414D differ, so we can look at that just to make sure. But what I wanted to ask is, in the bill on lines 144 to 152, that's current law, it has the early retirement age, Senator, right? And the factor, because I think your position is to move this, the magic number 80 and 30, you could leave it 50. Does that contemplate changing those percentages or leaving those the same?
No, sort of on the.
Well, I mean, you don't have to explain. Wouldn't necessarily.
Yeah.
You're not talking about moving the retirees. You're just trying to do the magic number rates. Okay.
It's just magic number.
That was just a question relative to those numbers of the less than full access to the money.
And assuming this bill moves forward and gets signed to the governor, or signed by the governor, the board will then set the specific things into motion for making this a reality. I really don't believe we're going to have that concern with the IRS, but even if we did, they can put that into their rules in order to say how people can come and stay.
The firefighters pension fund?
Correct. They can put their own rules into place for the people that are going to be in it. This is they're not going to do anything that's going to put somebody in harm's way, and certainly not the fund itself.
Right.
So that's their jobs. So.
Chairman Martin, does that finish your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
I did not have anybody signed up to speak on this. Does anybody want to speak? Yes, sir. If no need to sign up, if you don't mind just coming to the podium and state your name and your department.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Mike Bird. I am president of the Georgia State Firefighters Association, and I'm also fire chief for Spalding County Fire Department, just south of us. And I've come to you to ask you to support this bill, and I want to use my department as a prime example. Spalding County is a small, rural, up-and-coming department. We currently have 81 full-time slots, and I'm doing good to have 65 people on my current roster. We have hired 25. Of the 25, we have 11 that are completing rookie school. Retention is a significant problem for everybody in Georgia. I have roughly about 7 people hitting their 30-year mark this year. They're all currently waiting to see what happens in this room, because if this pension bill goes through, they will continue. And as the Firefighters Association, I have the opportunity of not just representing Spalding County. I represent the firefighter that's sitting in the city of Atlanta Fire Station as we speak, to a rural farmer who will leave his job to go fight fire when needed by his community. And when you look at this, especially if we start talking about the volunteers, if we push this through, we'll be able to give back to those that have been volunteering for 30 years. They've given their time for 30 years and sacrificed a lot. It will give to them. It will allow us to retain that experience that I'm about to lose personally in my department. And yes, it will, recruitment-wise, I believe it will do a lot for that as well. But we need this. We need us desperately in the fire service, because we're out in the schools. I have guys in career fairs out to Wazoo today. They don't want to do this job anymore. We laugh. We say, what is with the new generation? Well, most of them haven't ever played outside in their life, so becoming a firefighter is just not something they're thinking about. So we are in crisis mode right now to keep firefighters. We're in a bigger crisis mode to find them. I'm 40 years in. I'm 40 years in, been doing this job, and I still have 7 years left unless my department kicks me to the curb. And I'm not seeing the trend going any better right now, so we're doing everything we can, and we need your help to help keep that experience. And I currently have several Metro Department firefighters living in my community who have retired because their pension allowed them to age out that will come work for me if they're allowed. So this will hit everything from rural Georgia volunteers to your big metropolitan departments. It will benefit us all. So I'm desperately asking for your support for this on behalf of the Georgia Fire Service. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Byrd? I had a question, if you don't mind, sir.
Please, go right ahead.
I understand there's people that choose not to do it any longer, and there might be, like Chairman Albers mentioned, illnesses or injuries and so forth. Can you give me of your workforce? You said you have 81 positions, 65 FTEs, thereabouts. Of your 65 FTEs, what is the average amount of experience?
That's very scary, and I'm going to give you that's a great
That's
question.
where I was.
That's a great question.
I was hoping you were not going to say that, but I was worried you might.
I'm going to paint a picture for you. I'm getting ready to do a lieutenant's promotion. That is a first-line supervisor. I have firefighters who have been doing the job 3 years that are going to get promoted. 3 years. Because I have such a huge gap in service between the age of 3 years and 10 years. So in Spalding County, I have Station 5, which is on Hollandville Road. That lieutenant with one single firefighter could be by themselves for up to 12 minutes if a house fire comes in. So when you start looking at the inexperience, and this is not just Spalding County, this is a systemic problem all across the country and within the state. The experience level, we're hurting. We're hurting very much. It keeps me up at night knowing that I'm about to put a 3-year-old, 22-year-old firefighter making a decision on the first minutes of a house fire.
Any questions for Mr. Byrd? Thank you, sir. Thank you for your service.
No, thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you. Chairman McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today I'm retired firefighter McDonald of 27 years, did 23 with Forsyth County and the rest with Commerce Fire Department. The great thing about being a fireman is the camaraderie, the working together, relationships you build that I still have today, that while this bill has been in process, people have been calling me from my hometown of Commerce, from Jefferson, from Forsyth. They want this. They know that firefighters are needed in all their communities. As Georgia's changed, you heard the chief say, guys just aren't, they're not climbing, kids aren't getting out and climbing trees and getting dirt in their hands and riding bikes down the street. Now they have electric bikes. They don't pedal anymore. So things are changing. And with firefighting, fire doesn't change that much. The way the buildings are built, they change. But the process of fighting fire, we have to, we've had to change because of construction change. And I look at this bill that when I was a firefighter for South Carolina, I was on a shift worker program. So I got the same pay as a fireman, but I didn't get the benefits. But I was able to go also do my own job at my personal business when I wasn't there. And we had a lot of Atlanta firemen, DeKalb firemen, Alpharetta firemen that would come up and work in Forsyth County and bring great experience to our communities because it kept them from having to go out and cut grass and climb, cut trees and do those other jobs outside when they could come there and use that experience in these communities. And what this bill does, it allows this experience to go. A lot of people couldn't live in Atlanta. They couldn't afford to live there. So they lived in the Jeffersons, the Commerce, and they drove into Atlanta and Gwinnett to work. And now they've retired from the big cities and they live in these communities. And they want to work. They want to help their communities and give back. When they were leaving, going to help DeKalb in Atlanta, and coming back and sleeping in these small rural communities, they want to help. They want to give back now, and I think this bill gives them that opportunity to do that. Hey, I've lost 40-something pounds. I'm almost back in the game. I think I could. You could put me on a truck today. I drove a hook and ladder truck for 9.5 years and climbed a 101-foot ladder every third day. And I was hoping the chairman would stay because he's lost a lot of weight. I bet he could put his pads back on and go play Georgia football. So. I really support this bill, and there are firemen all around this state that need this. I was so glad to get my pension when I could have taken it 50. I don't know all the amendments that have been put on this, but I could have taken mine at 50. I waited to 55, and I'm making about $840-something a month on my pension, and I've never paid one dime into it because the communities that I lived in paid that for me, and it was great. It was an investment in me because I was a hell of a fireman and loved it. I support these guys, and I'd love to go back today if I could. So thank y'all for letting me speak.
Thank you, Chairman McDonald.
My house sponsor for the bill.
Yes, it sounds like it. I didn't need to ask the question. Let's continue the dialogue. I would very much like to do that, including Mr. Worst. I think this is an important issue. I think we have one more speaker. Sir, you want to go ahead?
So,
We're streaming, so yes, again, just speaking to the microphone.
my name is Gary Clark. I'm a past president of the Firefighters Association. I'm actually the author of the resolution that went before our body to have this bill brought to our retirement board for consideration. And I'm a recipient of this, and this is how it affects you, because I'm a retired firefighter. I did 29 years with the city of Gainesville. Some of my colleagues here with us today, and when I say I'm grateful for the retirement, and this is how it affects me personally. As a 29-year veteran of the service in Gainesville, I wasn't old enough to meet the 55 rule. So when I left, I was at 29 years at 50 years old. So I waited till I was 51 not to take such a hit. But even leaving and taking my retirement at 51, I took a 24% hit on my money because I have to wait till you're 55. I didn't want to leave that money on the table, so I took the hit of the 24% to be able to draw my pension. Now, by doing that, I was completely out of the fire service. I'm healthy, but I can't work anywhere. I can't go back and do contract work for any fire department in the state. I can't teach and draw any money from the state. All I can do is volunteer. I still serve on the GSAR team, if you're familiar with that. That's our Georgia Search and Rescue team through Gainesville. We were deployed to a hurricane that hit central Georgia not too long ago. I spent 2 weeks on deployment and didn't draw a dime because I couldn't draw any money from the state associate, from any department in order to be on that deployment. I spent 2 weeks on my time, my dime, free of charge. So that's how it's affecting me. I can't go back to doing any firefighter work whatsoever. I volunteer, and I'm grateful to be in the health that I'm in, be able to continue with the service in my community in Homer, Georgia. I still an active firefighter up there. And this is something that's been needed for years. We fought this thing for about 7 or 8 years, finally got it to this level, and we're just trying our best to get it across the finish line for every single firefighter in the state of Georgia. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Chairman Albers, is that something, has this been a legislative proposal for 7 or 8 years, or is this something that's been talked about and then that led to the bill introduced last year?
Yeah, we've been working on this for several years. This is the first time that we've got it to this point of passing it through committee.
Okay.
But it has become an ongoing issue. And again, after we had done this for teachers and done this for law enforcement, we just need the parity. And certainly after COVID, when the amount of first responders we've had across the board has been so dramatically impacted, it's gotten to crisis level now.
Okay. Any other questions to the committee? Thank you very much for being, oh, we have one more. I'm sorry.
Well, mine is not a question, but I was just looking at some of the population determinants that are out there, and what we see is that the largest percentage of growth is in the 45 to 54 age group. So that means that there are more people in that age group, and there's less in the age groups coming on, which we know the baby boomers are aging out. But it also means that if we're going to have firefighters, we've got fewer young people to take on all of the jobs that are being done, and we may have to hold on to some people and through some creative means to those jobs a little longer because we don't have the backfill. We don't have people on the bench. We don't have people, some of them even interested in the bench.
Representative, you're exactly right. You're doing two things. You're allowing those people to be there to help to train them and still be there during that gap, but it's a recruitment tool for those younger folks who say there's something there for me. Because even most local cities and counties that used to have retirement plans are all gone now. They're very, very rare.
This is expensive, as you well know, but I mean, it may be a cost that we've got to figure out how to
Well, no
handle.
state tax dollars.
Right, but I mean, it's just, whether it's this or some other kind of job that we've got to do, it's an expensive problem, but we need to be looking at those population numbers in everything we do. Thank you. Sorry for preaching.
No, not at all. There are tax dollars coming in from premium taxes coming in, from taxes being paid on premiums and premium policies. But I think what you're referring to, Chairman Albers, is no supplemental state appropriations to shore up the plan, correct?
Correct, yes, we do not appropriate anything from the state.
Anything else from the committee? Thank you, gentlemen, very much. Okay. Last but not least, Senate Bill 261, Senator Harbin. Is he here?
He had to step out to attend another meeting, and he asked
Okay.
if I could present the bill in his absence.
Very good. Let's give it a minute, Homer. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. Just a little background, the Magistrate's Retirement Fund in numbers is a small retirement fund. In the state, we have about 200 members. Our fund is valued about $56 million. We're over 150% funded, so extremely well funded. And our board has taken a very conservative approach to investments, and they're very conservative by nature. The bill before you, Senate Bill 261, does not ask for any state appropriations. We don't receive any state appropriations, and we're not asking to raise any tack-on fees to anyone. Simply, this bill is asking to make some internal changes within the retirement plan. These changes are supported by the Retirement Board and also the Council of Magistrate Judges of Georgia. Those changes include a change in the composition of the board itself. Currently, the law does not stipulate that a retired member of the fund be on the board. We would like to change that and add a retired member of the fund to the board itself. We're asking for an increase in dues to our members, and we have polled them and they support this. The increase is a small increase. It goes from 3.42% to 4% of their salary or salary cap. In conversations with the chairman, originally we had discussed an early retirement option, but we are supportive of withdrawing that from the bill. And our other changes include a change to the benefit multiplier from 4% to 5%, and to increase the pension number of years served from a max of 20 years to 28 years. A number of our current active members are getting close to that 20-year number. They're realizing that they want to stay on in their current capacity, and this would help them in doing that. And Mr. Chairman, that completes the changes.
Thank you for that, Homer. I think, yes, I'll say to my friend from Cobb County there, I actually spoke with Magistrate Judge Brendan Murphy, and he is supportive of this. He's, as you know, Chairman Wilkerson, Brendan is, I believe he's chair of the legislative committee for the Magistrate Courts Pension Fund. He is, ironically, at the Pension Fund retreat down at Jekyll right now. He's probably watching this right now. He is supportive of these changes. What they're most attuned about is not in regard to the retirement age. What they're most keen on is raising the benefit multiplier for up to 28 years. Now that does there's give and takes here. They're raising their dues, and they would be amenable to not having a retirement age. But if to Mr. Bryson's standpoint, if people are at 20 years and going over 20 years, they will receive more credit up to the 28 years for that additional service. I think I'll just mention this for the committee, we're going to be coming back with a committee sub, and to the committee, just keep in mind that this is probably not our last House Retirement Committee meeting this year. We'll probably have one Thursday. I don't want to go into Monday, but I might have to. So don't book anything Thursday at 2 o'clock. I will just say that. We'll probably have some further discussions because I know this is important to the magistrates, but there's a number of people, like you said, who are approaching that or maybe go over to that 20-year mark this year or next year. And fiscal bills like this are going to be a 2-year bill. So we're either going to do it or we're going to punt until 2028 and maybe we do it or not do it then. So I wanted to stress a couple things to the committee. One, this fund, just like Mr. Bryson mentioned, it's 147% funded per the actuarial investigation. Number two, the changes that I've floated to Department of Audits and Accounts would cost less than what these changes have cost, and these changes result in the fund being about 125% funded, 126, is that right?
That'd be correct. That sounds correct.
And the potential changes that I've floated to Department of Audits and Accounts would be even less costly, therefore be even more overfunded on a committee substitute. But
and we anticipate having that actuarial information back tomorrow.
I had spoken to Department of Audits and Accounts that they were going to work on it quickly, so, and I appreciate that. And I also want to say thank you to Legislative Council for working so quickly on this as well. So, any questions from the committee? Your magistrates not lighting you up like your firefighters are?
Thursday is my wife's birthday, so you're getting me in trouble one way or another, Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chairman Franklin.
I just piqued my curiosity. Is there any fund that's funded more than 147%?
That would be a question for Legislative Council.
Yeah, that's pretty significant, right?
I'm affiliated with 5 retirement funds, and it's by far the most well-funded one that we have.
Great. Thank you, Homer. I don't see any further questions. Thank you, Mr. Bryson. We are adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.